Nation, I need you to be honest with me. Should the Las Vegas Raiders sign Russell Wilson next season? Yes or no? Every single person, I need to know what you're thinking down in the comments. Coming up here on today's Raiders Report show, my answer to this question. Raider Nation, what's going on? It's Mitchell Renz here, host of the Raiders Report. And when I started this show, I wanted to be able to create healthy conversations because I'm looking at the live chat right now, and everybody is saying this video better be only 60 seconds and it better be a big fat no. But here's the problem. Laying out all the reasons why they should and why they shouldn't is very important for the Las Vegas Raiders, and that's exactly why. That's what you're going to get on today's show. I am going to lay out why it does make sense for the Raiders and why it doesn't make sense for the Raiders. And if you're somebody that's sitting here watching right now and you go, Mitch, it doesn't make any sense, there's no way that you can tell me that, I am willing to bet y'all. I am willing to bet y'all a beer bong that if you said no, watching this show, no way that by the end of the show you're going to go, oh, all right, if I can stick to the Broncos, I might be in. Now, if you don't know what the hell is going on with Russell Wilson, maybe you live underneath a rock. All the reports indicate that Denver is going to be moving on from Russ. They benched him in Week 17. Obviously, Wilson was not very happy about that, and all the reports do indicate that Denver will be moving on from him. It's kind of just like the whole Derek Carr situation that the Raiders have, and funny enough, Jarrett Stidham also gets the start for Denver as well. But it's going to be an $85 million dead cap hit to cut Russell Wilson. So if you want to know how much Sean Payton doesn't like Russ, there you go. $85 million in dead cap to cut him. And it's going to end up happening. So with Payton clearly not liking Russ, and the reason why they have to do this is because if he's on the roster by March 17, 2024, then $37 million for 2025 becomes fully guaranteed. And if he ends up getting hurt, well, guess what? He can't pass his physical, and then he's on the roster, and then he's going to be on the hook, and Sean Payton just doesn't want to have to deal with Russell Wilson anymore. If Wilson gets cut, and when he gets cut, he is going to be the top free agent quarterback in 2024. At the time that I'm making this video, the Raiders picked number 11 in the 2024 NFL Draft, and if you don't want to have to trade 3 first-round picks to get the number 1 pick, or you don't want to have to trade a boatload of picks, multiple firsts, to try to get a Jayden Daniels, a Caleb Williams, a Drake Maye, if you don't want to trade for a guy like Justin Fields, or you don't want to trade for a guy like Kyler Murray, you want to go a cheaper option, then a lot of people should honestly look this Russell Wilson destination, who, believe it or not, is actually not having that bad of a year. 26 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, over 3,000 yards, and from a career standpoint, he's probably going to go into the Hall of Fame. Yes? No? It's definitely a discussion, but the bottom line is this. Not many quarterbacks like Russell Wilson hit the free agency market. Yeah, I get it. He's 35 years old. He had a bad year in 2022, but maybe that has to do more with the way that the Broncos were constructed, and maybe it's because your head coach, Nathaniel Hackett, because underneath Sean Payton looks totally different. When he was with the Seattle Seahawks, I think everybody would have said he was a top 10 quarterback. So it's really hard to find quarterbacks with this much talent on the market. On top of that, the Raiders want, right, like somebody that can move around a little bit. He is a mobile quarterback. So coming up here, I'm going to tell you why it makes sense for the Raiders to pursue Russell Wilson if, in fact, the Denver Broncos decide to cut him. If you want more quarterback videos, I know this, man. I know I make videos every day. I know I'm going to talk about free agency. We're going to talk about the draft. We are going to talk more about quarterbacks this offseason probably than we've ever had, man. And that's saying a lot from this channel because we've talked about DC quite a bit. Hell, somebody the other day on Instagram asked me, Mitch, are you a Marvel or DC fan? I said Marvel because I can't talk about DC anymore. We're going to talk a lot about quarterbacks this offseason. If you want to stay in tune, hit that subscribe button. All right, let's get into here why the Raiders should at least go after Russell Wilson. He's an upgrade over Aiden O'Connell. If you can legitimately look me in the eyes, and this show is about honesty, right? Like, the reason why I say that the nation's my family is because I step up here every single day and I give you my honest opinion. And if I were to sit here and look at my family members in the eye and lie to them, I would think that that's pretty damn shady, right? And anybody, and I get it, you want to be a Raider fan, I get Russ as a Bronco, F the Broncos, F Sam, I'm all about it. But if you honestly think that Aiden O'Connell's a better quarterback than Russell Wilson, get your head out of your ass. Like, You can dislike Russ. I don't like Russell Wilson. He's one of the most dislikable guys in the NFL. I don't disagree with that. But he is light years better than Aiden O'Connell, for the love of God. Like, Aiden's not even top 32. Russell Wilson's a top 16 quarterback. Russell Wilson is a better quarterback than Derek Carr, if you want to throw out that name at me, because from what I have seen, no, that's not accurate. From what I have seen from Aiden this season, he's got one good game against the Chargers and played okay this past week against Indy. Besides that, it's been a nightmare, and I get it. He's dealing with Bo Hardiger. He's dealing with the Josh McDaniels offense. He's still only a rookie. But, Mitch, if you give him time to marinate, I don't got time to marinate. I'm trying to find a quarterback this offseason, and I'm not going into next season with Aiden O'Connell. Let's go to the next reason here. You get to keep your draft capital. If he ends up getting cut, you can sign him. So if you can sign him, that means you don't have to trade away any big-name players. You don't have to give up maybe that second or third for what it would cost to get a Justin Fields. You don't have to trade 3 first-round picks to try to get a Caleb Williams or Drake Maye. You don't got to trade 2 firsts and maybe a second-round pick and some change to get a guy like Jayden Daniels. You can keep your draft capital, and you can build, which right now looks to be a pretty damn good team. And, like, I look at the Raiders right now, their defense playing top 5 in the NFL. You got a hell of a running game when healthy. Your offensive line doesn't get nearly enough credit. You got one of the best receiving cores in the NFL. And I'll tell you what, right now I think that this team could be a quarterback away from competing if your defense plays the way that you did. So imagine you have Russell Wilson as your starting quarterback, then Devontae Adams, Jacoby Myers, Trey Tucker, Michael Mayer, a good offensive line, and a top 5 defense. I mean, I'll say this. Russell Wilson, last time he won a Super Bowl was with the top 5 defense in Seattle. Like, I know he's a cornball. I know he's a weirdo. He's not an easy guy to root for. But the Raiders do have a legit NFL team together right now. And if you don't want to give up all the draft capital, and if you don't want to spend a lot of money, you should circle Russell Wilson. So coming up next here is the number one reason, the biggest reason why it would make sense. And when I started this show out, I said that for anybody saying no, I'll bet you a beer bong. And I will. I'll stick to that. I will bet you something, because if I tell you what's coming up next and you still say no, then you're just being ignorant. You can be ignorant. That's fine. I get it. He's a Bronco. He's Russ. I don't like him either. But if it helps out the Raiders and it's a gut punch to a division rival, man, that's something that I think a lot of people are going to like. I'll tell you what it is, but first I got to tell you about Prize Picks. I know Buddy Bear hanging out with Choco Bear and Roxy. They're probably getting their picks in for all the Sunday slate games, maybe even a little Saturday slate. This weekend, I can't wait for. I'm going to get a little dabbling in Saturday games. I'm going to do a little dabbling on Sunday, and I'm definitely going to be putting some money down on the national championship game with Prize Picks. And if you want to get started, it's easy. All you got to do is pick 2+ players, choose more or less. Go to prizepicks.com/CLNS to make sure that you use code CLNS for a first-time deposit match up to $100. That link's going to be available to you all down in the comments and down in the description of today's show. My picks for this week, I'm going to go Baker Mayfield more than 223.5 passing yards going up against Carolina, who stinks. C.J. Stroud, less than 270.5. Interdivision game, I think Indy is going to show up there. And then CeeDee Lamb, give me the more, going up against the Commanders, one of the worst defenses, if not the worst defense in the National Football League. And if I end up getting this, guess what? I put down 10. I got a chance to win $50. That's pretty darn good if you ask me. So again, if you want a chance to watch some football games, but also have an opportunity to make a little bit of money, to me, I look at Prize Picks as a win-win opportunity. Not too often in today's day and age can you put down $10, occupy yourself for 3 hours, with a chance to win $50. So if you're like, you know what, Mitch? Sold. If they're the number one daily fantasy app for a reason, go give it a shot, but make sure that they know that we sent you from the Raiders Report. And the only way to do that is by going to prizepicks.com/CLNS and make sure that you use code CLNS. Here's the final reason of why the Raiders should consider getting Russell Wilson. If the Raiders sign Russell Wilson, you can really, really screw over the Broncos. Are you interested? Well, listen up. Here's how Russ can screw Denver. And, it's kind of similar-ish-y to where Derek Carr had the no-trade clause, and because the Raiders were forced to cut him, the Raiders didn't get any draft capital. It kind of stuck it to him a little bit. Well, here's the thing with Russ, okay? There's the report out there that obviously the Broncos could cut him, and if Russell's willing to take the vet minimum in 2024. So this conversation only stems from the idea of the Raiders getting Russell Wilson at $1.21 million. The moment that Russ gets cut, he gets paid, right? The moment he gets cut, $89 million going to his bank account, which is pretty good. Now, some of you are like, why would the hell would the Broncos do that? Well, if they cut him, yeah, it's an $89 million dead cap hit. However, they do free up $37 million in cash. People talk about Mark Davis all the time, cash, right? Here's the thing, though. The Broncos also get a credit for Wilson's earnings in 2024. So hypothetically, I mean, Russ is still going to make $89 million essentially, right, in 2024. And the Broncos get a credit. So whatever amount Russell decides to sign with to that team in 2024, the Broncos, because of his contract, get a credit. So if Russell Wilson signs a $30 million deal to go play for the Raiders, then the Broncos also get a $30 million credit in 2024. If Russ wants to say, hey, Denver, F you, you're still going to pay me all this money, and he's still technically on a per-year basis going to be one of the highest-paid quarterbacks in the NFL. But if Russ says, you know what, pay me the vet min, let's build a Super Bowl caliber team at $1.21 million, and then the Broncos in 2024 only get $1.21. The number one way that Russell Wilson can screw over Denver, and a way that the Raiders would be able to screw over Denver too, is you get their quarterback at $1.21 million. You save all your draft capital. You save a bunch of money in free agency. And a team that right now I think a lot of people view as being a quarterback away from winning the Super Bowl, you get a legit top 15 QB at $1.21 million, and you get to screw over the Broncos. Like, I will admit, the only way that I am interested in this is if I'm getting Russell Wilson for that Bettman. That's the only way. And you get to screw over Denver. I'll tell you this right now. I know some people are still saying, no way, no way, no way. I hear you. But what if you can't trade up to get one of those top quarterbacks? What if, Justin Fields goes somewhere else? I know this. You can't roll with Aiden O'Connell again next season. So how about this? Let's have a little bit of fun here, because these are some of the quarterbacks that I've been talking a lot about on this show. And Aiden O'Connell, Russell Wilson, Justin Fields. Let's just say these were your only three options at QB, because whoever the next head coach is says, you know what, I'm not going to give up all that draft capital. We're not going to do it. We're not going to give up multiple first-round picks to go get a guy. So you're either going to roll with Aiden O'Connell again, you're either going to roll with Russell Wilson, or you're going to roll with Justin Fields, and you're only going to trade a second and a third-round pick, because according to ESPN, the consensus in an informal poll of league evaluators is that Fields would be worth a second or third-round pick in a pre-draft trade. So that is according to ESPN, and a bunch of people that work inside ESPN, NFL insiders, said that it's going to cost second or third. Cool. So you're not going to give up a first to get one of those top QBs in the draft. Awesome. So now you're going to either give up a second and third for Justin Fields, or you're going to sign Russell Wilson to a $1.21 million vet min, not give up any draft capital, screw over the Broncos, or you're going to roll with Aiden O'Connell again. For me, my answer is so damn simple on this one, because I would rather, okay, like the Raiders cannot go with they cannot go with Aiden O'Connell. That's all I know. I would rather the Raiders trade for Justin Fields than having Aiden O'Connell be the starting quarterback. I would rather the Raiders sign Russell Wilson to a vet minimum deal than to roll with Aiden O'Connell again. You cannot do that to your fan base. You can't do this to that team. Like, you can't do it. That's how I feel about those options there. Now, I do got to give a shout-out to the Noti Gang. And the Noti Gang, man, still being able to pull up to the nation, even in the off-season when essentially the games don't matter anymore. Believe me when I tell you this, it means a lot to me. Like, the fact that Carly's, Godzilla, Raider Sancho, Andrew, and Scar Oak are still pulling up. Hey, I tell you, man, it means the world to me. And if you're like, Mitch, how do I get a shout out on the show? How do I be a part of the Noti Gang? All you got to do is this. Hit subscribe. Turn on your notifications. As soon as I drop a video, you get a notification on your phone. Very similar when somebody sends you a text, maybe a booty call, whatever you're into. And then you go on that video and you try to be one of the very first people to comment. Believe it or not, helps me out a lot. So shout out to the Noti Gang. All right, coming up next here is why the Raiders shouldn't target Wilson. Like, everything that I just said, that's not me sitting up here saying that I want Russell Wilson. But in order for me to do my job well, I do think it's important to paint the picture of why it makes sense and why it doesn't make sense. Instead of just saying no, or instead of just saying yes, let's have an educational discussion about it. Yes, no, here we go. First reason why you don't do it, he's not willing to take the vet min. I'm not dealing with Russell Wilson shenanigans if he's not willing to take the vet minimum deal. I already said at my piece about, personally, I'd rather you trade up, and that's kind of where this next one goes. If the Raiders say, I want a quarterback in the draft, love it. The only way I'm going to love it, though, is if you mean trading up to get a Jayden Daniels, Caleb Williams, or a Drake Maye. If you're able to get a Michael Penix Jr., a Bo Nix, J.J. McCarthy, like, again, I'm not targeting J.J. until round 3. Bo Nix, Penix, to me, are probably both second-round picks still in that regard. But if the Raiders like, we're drafting a QB, all right, cool. Then you're not going to go out and get him. If the Raiders could trade for Justin Fields, if that report, which was a second and a third-round pick, right? If it was a second and a third-round pick, like, I would look at this situation as I'd say, again, yeah, I would rather the Raiders trade for Fields or sign Wilson before going back to AOC as the starter. But also, if it's only going to cost a second or a third-round pick for Justin Fields or signing Russell Wilson, I will take the third-round pick for Justin Fields over signing Russell Wilson. Hell, I might even do the second for Fields over signing Wilson. And the only reason why I say that is because I know the players inside that locker room want Fields. I don't think that they want Russell Wilson. And, my final point here is probably the biggest one. No more God guys. And some of y'all are like, Mitch, what the hell does that mean? Russell Wilson and Josh McDaniels, I think you could say both are God complex guys where they think that they are the best. They think that they walk on water. And you just did such a good job of getting rid of the cancer that was McDaniels, and you have a really strong locker room, right? Like, doesn't really make sense for the Raiders to keep Antonio Pierce as their head coach and then add a guy like Russell Wilson, who I think really could F up that locker room, could really F up a lot of the continuity that keeps that Raiders team together, right? I don't want another leader when they're in the huddle, people look at this guy and they go, this guy sucks. I can't afford to have that. You can't afford that. The Raiders can't afford to have that situation again. So financially, it could make some sense. But for my heart of hearts, right, it's really tough to put Russell Wilson on this team. However, though, it is just win, baby. It is commitment to excellence. And does Russell Wilson help you do that? Well, here's the thing. Should the Raiders sign Russell Wilson for next season? I asked you all this question at the start of the show. And my honest-to-God opinion in regards to whether or not the Raiders should do it is split into this. Yes, if Russell Wilson takes the vet minimum and the Raiders want to keep all of their draft capital and star players. Like, you don't want to trade a Devontae Adams, but you still want to make sure that you can win a Super Bowl. Right now, you're trying to win this season. Like, what if Devontae Adams, Max Crosby, they come up to you and they go, I want to win now mode. And I think that us winning now, Russell Wilson gives us a better chance of going out and trading all that capital. No, if the Raiders are going to trade up for a franchise QB or trade for Justin Fields. Like, that's kind of how I sit on all of this. I would rather the Raiders trade for a franchise QB. I would rather the Raiders trade for Justin Fields. But then it's Russell Wilson because I would rather have Russell Wilson signed to a vet minimum deal instead of starting Aiden O'Connell again. That's where I sit on Russell Wilson potentially coming to the silver and black. So one more time here, a quick little recap. Why the Raiders should get Wilson. Upgrade over Aiden. You get to keep your draft capital. LV is a quarterback away from competing, and if you're able to add a quarterback at $1.21 million, you screw over Denver, and it helps out your overall team. And then here's why you shouldn't. If he's not willing to take the vet minimum deal, well, then I'm not even interested. If the Raiders want to draft a quarterback, I'm a happy camper. If the Raiders think, all right, we'll trade it for Fields because he's a better locker room guy than what Wilson is, cool, I'm on board. And then I just don't need more people like Josh McDaniels. And Russell Wilson is a quarterback that's just like Josh McDaniels. No more God complex guys. Now, I appreciate each and every one of y'all that tuned into today's show. Shout out to my guy, Buddy Bear, for always repping with us as well. If you don't know, we are going to be live on Thursday on top of that. Now, we used to do Thursday night football. Obviously, there's no Thursday night football this week. So what we're going to end up doing is doing a normal Thursday live show. I'm going to be live at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, 1 p.m. Pacific here on the Raiders Sports. So make sure you're subscribed. Make sure those notifications are turned on because, well, it's Thirsty Thursday, just a little bit earlier in the day. Hopefully you guys all have an amazing new year. Hopefully we got some New Year's resolutions as well. And if you're watching this live, good luck to you.